Hello, everybody. I'm Dr. Matthew. I'm really happy to be doing this masterclass with Mauli Ritual today and sharing with you the relevance of Ayurveda and its basic concepts in our modern lifestyle context. Think I have now an experience of more than a decade, about 12 years working as an Ayurvedic doctor, and last 4 years practicing in the UK. I sort of gradually learned how the basic concepts, the idea of food and cuisine, the factors related to daily and lifestyle advices, and cleansing, which is four important aspects of Ayurveda, applies in outside India context. So I'm trying to share with you that experience. I hope you will also learn and understand a bit more about Ayurveda and will be able to apply it as well. So, as the first topic today, I will be speaking about the concept. I will be speaking about doshas and how do we understand it in a modern point of view, and how do we actually see it in our everyday life. So, I will try to share with you examples as well. Um, in the coming master classes, we'll be talking about there is one on the topic of food, specifically how Ayurveda works outside the Indian cuisine and how we can bring about these Ayurvedic superfoods into our daily diet pattern. The third one, we will be talking about how Ayurveda can be implemented in our daily life through um, sort of lifestyle quick remedies that we can take before an illness progresses into a full-fledged symptom and full-fledged disease condition. So those are the first three, and the final one will be about cleansing and panchakarma and how we can sort of do that uh, from home or with the help of a practitioner at home. So um, this is a broad outline. Today it's about concept, but being the first class, it sort of is important to understand why do we need Ayurveda? What is the importance of Ayurveda in this new age? So Ayurveda has existed, as you might all know, for a very long time. In the written form of the textbooks that we study currently are most 2000 years old, and before that it did exist as an oral tradition of Sanskrit slokas and sutras, which were passed on from generation to generation. So it's a very ancient science, and why do we need something so old for our modern issues? Now, thinking about that, we do talk about modern issues, but then imagining human beings in the same shape and same size, same brain development, we have an experience of living on this planet Earth for about, I think, the oldest similar human being fossil was about, I think, 300,000 years old. So there is a experience of living on planet Earth for so long, and Homo erectus or older species before Homo sapiens is a maybe more than that, 2 or 3 million years old. So we have actually stored all these information of how to deal with the nature, how to live in this nature in a sort of fashion which is also in tune with the changes happening around us, whether it is the day and night cycle or the cycle of different seasons. Uh, so that exists already inside us. And I think in the last 100 or 200 years, our lifestyle has been majorly changed. I think the biggest change is until then we lived pretty much in mercy of what nature provides us, whether it is food, if one season the food, the climate suddenly changes, or if there's a flood or a famine, that leads to a problem of food supply, or even before that, we just eat what is seasonally available. And for a very long time, our system learned to cope with this idea that nature provides and we adjust according to that. The climate changes and we adjust according to that. The seasons vary, etc. But then last 100 to 200 years, we've managed to sort of create a bubble around us. The temperature around us is comfortable almost all the time. We try to sort of um, keep food patterns similar, even if the weather changes. We plan to sort of do things uh, in a way that the nature doesn't influence us. But it's very important to understand that the genetic constitution and the memory inside each and every cells of our body is still very old. That's why we still can't resist when we see food which is sugary, or when we see food which is uh, concentrated in energy like fats or lipids. It immediately creates that positive feedback inside our brain, and our whole system actually feels happy for at least few moments. So there is this uh, nature inside us which tells us, based on this long experience living on this planet, and there is also this new changes that we brought into our lifestyle mainly to make things convenient. So there is much less physical activity compared to, say, a hunter gatherer who will have to hunt to survive. So the activities have gone low. Our system has not caught up with this whole change, and the systems that are there for, say, medicines or supplies that we are using to balance ourselves, including food or medicines, they are also constantly transforming. So we are in this stage of mismatch where our evolution and the learning from that is not matching with what we actually need. So it's even more important to um, sort of tap into information that we already have, experiences that we already have. And Ayurveda is almost like that. When we say it's 2000 to 5000 years old, it was never static. It sort of went through, say, we understanding data processing and supercomputers sort of doing reading from massive amount of data and finding out trends and solutions of different issues that we face. Similarly, in these, say, 2000 years, this science has gone through multiple brains and multiple logics and multiple crisis situations related to changes in food, climate, etc. And all of that just adds more to this refinement and value in this science. So it's more sort of like an experience, a collective experience of so long time, processed through multiple brains, many thousands of brains, and then brought into more sort of a practically applicable, easy to follow guidelines and observations, um, which is very much what we need, I think, right now to sort out issues which are more chronic and affecting our health long term, not for acute issues, obviously. And also, it takes into account how nature influences us and what's the effect of our immediate environment on our health. So this is sort of the, I think, the awareness that we have got, that we have to live in proper tune with the nature. So this sort of fits into that as well quite well, of eating locally, seasonally, to provide us what we actually need to nourish and heal ourselves. So there is this mismatch, and I feel that Ayurveda can act as a solution to support. Right. So before going into the basic concepts, the structure of Ayurveda is quite simple. It's not just guidelines. There's popularly a misconcept that Ayurveda is either lifestyle guidelines or herbs, or a combination of both. So Ayurveda, in my view, is like a user manual that we get with these gadgets, like a new phone or any electronic equipment. So you will have this picture in front of it, which is marked with, which is the switch, which is the battery, which is the um, plug point. All these different parts of the equipment will be marked. And there will be also a part which tells you how to use it properly, how to operate this particular instrument. And the last part will be about troubleshooting. If something goes wrong, how to actually mend it and see whether you have followed the procedure, how you can correct it, how you can reset things to start properly. So Ayurveda is also pretty much like that. We have to first look at our body, mind, and soul as a unique entity. We can't actually apply the understanding of our physical body, which is developed in the last 100, 200 years. That is basically our biochemistry, anatomy, and physiology. Uh, we have to look at the body as a whole. We have to see how our body and mind is connected and influencing each other. And we have to have a view of our body, mind, and soul as one single unit. And that's what makes Ayurveda unique. So we need to look at the components in a different way. We need to also know how to utilize our body properly. And there is no universal rules. Now, if there are rules which are good for everybody, there are still exceptions. And that's always written in Ayurvedic text very properly, that all of these guidelines are sort of examples, and these applies in these situations and may have to be changed based on various changes happening within your body or the environment around you. So how to use you properly is dependent on you. The most important factor is who is being treated rather than what is the illness or what is the symptom. So that's an important difference in Ayurvedic procedures, that who is getting the advice will decide what sort of lifestyle pattern. It's almost like if you compare, say, mobile phones, and you have a booklet coming with it, a user manual, and it could be an iPhone, it could be a Samsung, it could be a Microsoft phone. They all run, the function is quite similar, to call and do all those apps and things in it, but they are all fundamentally very different. It's very similar to what we have in Ayurveda, that all of us may look alike, may function similarly, but we are all very different and unique internally, and our balancing nature inside our body makes it sort of easy to deal with those changes. But it's always important to be aware of your own nature, your own risk factors, as well as your own strength. And that always helps what kind of lifestyle will suit you. So that's the how to use yourself well. And troubleshooting is not about treatments and medicines all the time. So Ayurveda existed in at least last 2000 years mainly through being home remedies. So in my household in Kerala, I have known Ayurveda as something that my mom will actually prepare for me when I have a cold or a cough, and things which are done uh, like quickly from herbs and spices and things which are available very easily in your kitchen or your back garden. That's where Ayurveda sort of survived and continued to nourish itself for a very long time. All those bigger institutions and hospitals and all of these came up very recently. Before that, it was more sort of a practice of medicine, which is very localized. A doctor would actually have access to a herb garden or minimal number of exotic herbs, and they will mix and match different things, analyze the person, and then prescribe remedies for those issues. So uh, this is the basic idea of Ayurveda. So today, like I said, we are looking at concepts, trying to understand what is the basic idea and how do we see the body uh, differently compared to the modern understanding. So one of the most important simple idea is that we are part of the nature. The same factors which makes everything in the nature, both living and non-living, uh, makes our body as well. We know that now with the chemistry knowledge. We know that there are different elements, and we are prepared. We are made of the same elements that forms, say, carbon or hydrogen, which forms everything around us. But I think 2000 years ago, they lacked those gadgets, like electron microscopes and things like that, to find out these elements and the differences between various elements. But they had some gadgets with them, and the gadgets or the instruments they had was their own five senses. So the sense of touch, smell, taste, sight, and hearing. So uh, five senses, when they actually used it, then it was easier to understand that everything in nature is also made of five different aspects: air, ether or space, fire, water, and earth. So when we say air as an element, it has nothing to do with um, gases or air, like oxygen or carbon dioxide. It's more related to that. We know that we have air in front of us, not because we can see it, but because when we move or speak, we can feel it. So the sense of touch is more connected to air than anything else. So we understand the movement, the dryness and the coldness, all of that from mainly the sense of touch. The ether similarly relates to our ability to hear and understand direction or assume distances. Fire relates to our ability to see light and energy. Water is sort of an idea that came from things that dissolve in our saliva and gives us taste. Earth relates to our ability to take in particles into our nostril and then realize the smell of it. So it's quite heavy and earthy. So five element theory, basically the most important concept in Ayurveda, basically says that we are made of the same factors that are available in nature, and solutions for various health issues and imbalances can be also found within these. That's a very simple idea behind the five elements, because it is quite complex, and going into depth of whether a person has an imbalance of one of these elements or a combination, the number five always makes it a bit more complex, and that was simplified in with experience into the three doshas, where the vata, the first dosha, vata, vata, as you can see in the screen, um, in Sanskrit, which literally means like air, denotes more sort of qualities and functions of um, ether or space and air. Pitta representing more of fire with an association of water, and Kapha representing more of earthy, heavy qualities and functions in the body with again an association of water. So it's in effect explaining the relationship between various body functions and the structure of our body, or the structure of the whole universe, in the form of air, ether, fire, water, and earth. So it's sort of uh, a merging of both the physical aspect of our body and environment, and also looking at the spiritual concepts of life and existence, all of that. So looking at the doshas, so they are simplified version of this five element theory. So let's sort of try and go simplify it. So I'm going to, my intention is to start with complex ideas and then go into simpler and simpler um, uh, application today. So if you're feeling like it's a bit too much of philosophy, it will become simpler. Bear with me. So doshas, as you might already know, some of you might be familiar with the idea of what these are. So we are going to say that it's a nature, and it's also related to the elements within you, and they represent as not as physically water, space, earth, etc. They exist in your body as various energies, and it also exists in your body as certain quality and function. So for example, if you look at the vata dosha, it is quality wise like air and space, quite dry and quite cold, and that sort of reflects in our body as not just physical dryness. It can cause dryness within the body, clicking joints. It can create constipation tendency, dryness in any mucous membrane, eyes, ears, nose, anywhere. So, and the coldness is more related to, we all are exactly almost exactly same body temperature. We feel cold because the circulation is not efficient, or blood pressure changes with person to person, and that inefficiency causes our hands and feet or extremities, earlobes, etc. feel more cold than others. Um, it's related to movement of how the temperature moves and is distributed in the body. So Vata in essence is all the movements, and it's not just related to body and physical movement. It's also connected to our creativity. It's also connected to our thinking out of the box nature. It's connected to fast and impulsive decision making, and if out of balance, it can cause constant worrying or anxiety tendency. Pitta, while representing fire and water, it is by nature quite um, flowing, oily kind of nature, and it is also quite hot, or not temperature-wise, quite acidic in nature. And in our body, that is necessary for, and fire as in nature also represents change or transformation. Something is burning into something else, and in that process, energy is released. Similarly, in our body, Pitta represents the digestive functions of enzymes, hormones, anything which is constantly changing. And in our mind, it represents like our problem solving capability, our ability to sort of focus on a certain idea and try and sort of understand it. Um, Pitta is necessary for that goal-oriented approach. But if out of balance, it can create that reactive frustration, anger, sort of emotions being expressed. Kapha, like you've seen in the previous slide, represents water and earth. And in our body, in nature, if you look, water and earth is necessary for plants and animals to nourish and grow. So similarly, kapha here represents that nourishing function. It's quite sort of heavy, oily, colder, like vata. So it tends to sort of create those similar qualities with tissue nourishment. It can sort of help improve repair, tissue repair. It can improve in the mind, our ability to retain information, memory power. It creates that groundedness and calmness within us. And if going out of balance and physically, like it creates heaviness and water retention, mucousy issues, etc. In the mind, it can create lethargy, fatigue, and stubbornness, lack of energy symptoms. And uh, in effect, if we look at these three doshas, understanding that these comes from the five element and we are made of all five, we also have to understand that all three doshas exist in our body, and proper health is sort of defined, as you can see in this definition from Sushruta Samhita, just a 6th century AD book. It's written in that time, could be older than that. It sort of indicates that proper health is a combination of basically not just the three doshas being balanced, but at the same time how it actually influences our digestion, body structure, and elimination, or day-to-day cleansing on a physical level. And on a mental level, when the three doshas alignment helps us achieve better spiritual awareness, better sense organ function, and a calm and pleasant mind. So it's sort of a broad idea of uh, what is health and what is the definition of health. It's not about one of the dosha being better than other, or it's not that all of us are either one or a combination of two. We are all three in varied level of balance between three of them. And the idea is to bring all three into balance, and that's proper health. And if it's not in health or not in proper balance, sorry, then we understand disease can occur. Now, disease formation is a very elaborately described process in Ayurveda. So I don't think it will be slightly beyond the scope of what we are talking today. But there are other elements or other factors involved in disease formation, like ama or toxin, or it could be related to our agni or digestive power. So I want all of you to sort of understand that disease is not just dosha imbalance. Disease is dosha imbalance progressing through different stages, like the primary stage. So there are 6 stages, and the primary stage is where doshas create symptom in its own location. Like for example, Pitta, the main location is between our chest and navel, and it's mostly all where all the digestive enzymes and all the major chemical reactions happen. So this is where pitta seat is, and if there are symptoms there like feeling warmth or feeling acidic, all of these are usually an indicator of a first stage. Even before that, we might actually just notice it as a craving for a particular taste or aversion to a particular quality or taste, like heat or cold, or a certain flavor like sweet or salty. So uh, three doshas goes through different stages, and mostly when it manifests into a particular illness, not a uh, the illness stage is sort of the 5th stage of dosha imbalance. So there are 4 different opportunities before that to identify the issue, take steps to prevent it, and sort of focus on preventing it being a full-fledged illness, which is stage 5, and stage 6 is the complication. Stage 1 is sort of the craving stage, where we understand that there is an imbalance going to happen. Stage 2 is where the doshas develop in their own location, creating symptoms locally. Stage 3 broadly can be understood as doshas moving outside its location. It's called a prasara, and it goes out of your um, its own location and can create symptoms elsewhere generally. And if it sort of manifests further into specific symptoms in a particular location, that you might see it as a burning sensation in a particular place when it's pitta, or pain or achy feeling in or stiffness in a particular joint. But yet it's not stage 5. The difference is, if you do an investigation or try to sort of do a scan or a blood check, there won't be anything unusual, because the manifestation has to create tissue based change where it'll be more visible, and that's stage 5, and then further goes into stage 6 and different complications occurring from this disease manifestation. So it's important to understand that it's not a singular event, disease formation, and it's relevant because the treatment method, say in the first stage, the treatment is just uh, eating according to what your body is asking for, looking at your own cravings and trying to understand why is it happening. And each of these stages, the depth of the treatment goes further and further, and if it goes beyond say stage 4, where it moves out of its own location, then we would need sort of external therapies like oil application and focus on panchakarma or cleansing methods, whereas stages before that can be adjusted through just diet and lifestyle changes. So it's important to understand that health uh, is a constantly changing scenario, where we bring dosha imbalances from its various stages of manifestation to proper balance, and it's experienced as a combination of good digestion, proper tissue structure formation, proper elimination, and in a mental level, it sort of manifests as pleasant and experiences related to our mind, senses, and soul. So I want you to just understand this basic idea of what doshas do in our body. Now, a lot of you might have heard this word called Prakriti, or body nature. There are 2 aspects in there. I just want to quickly tell you that Prakriti, or what we are born with, we are all born with a certain imbalance, let's say. It doesn't have to be called an imbalance because it doesn't create any symptoms or health issues. This nature that we are born with, it's not just genetically decided. There are other epigenetic and environmental factors that affects it. But once it is decided, it stays with you. And the relevance of this understanding is that you will be the best person to know what is your nature, what is your prakriti. Uh, it will sort of show up as your preferences in sort of your activities, as well as food preferences, what you like, what you don't like, what makes you feel comfortable, and what doesn't actually feel that well for you in terms of food and activities. So That's the relevance of Prakriti. And when it goes out of balance, start creating symptoms, that's where doctors come into play, and we look at sort of what is causing problems. The problem creators can be the same as your Prakriti. So if you're a Vata natured person and you have starting to have bone or joint related issues, aches and pains or stiffnesses, it is very much a Vikriti, which is again focused on Vata. In those situations, treatments are actually easier because it will feel good. It will be something like you going back to a routine which was already good for you, and you know that. But when there could be situations where your Vikriti can be different, for example, a hormonal change associated with, say, perimenopausal time, and the hormonal effect of that can be quite pitta aggravating. And if the person is naturally Vata body type, they might have already got used to a pattern of life which suits Vata tendency and will be struggling with making choices with this sudden change. And that can actually create the imbalance to go into further symptoms and health issues, where we usually guide based on what is the relevant imbalance at this time, and then go back to your Prakriti based diet and routine later. So primary preference given to the uh, problem maker. That's the idea of Prakriti, which means natural body constitution, and Vikriti, which is imbalance, which is creating some form of symptom. Now, uh, like I said, my idea of doshas, why did I share from the beginning, from the elements to how it is applied in our body? How do we understand health? How do we understand diseases? Because doshas are not something just related to our own body or our own um, body and mind. Doshas are existing everywhere purely because doshas are a simplified version of the five elements itself, which is a basic building block, like we understood of everything. Again, because we used our five senses to understand things around us. Now, that's why I thought it would be interesting in this process of applying doshas in an out of India context, wherever you are listening to this worldwide, how we can understand dosha as a lens, as a method of looking at things, not a thing itself. We look through the dosha lens, either at our body or our mind inside, or you can look at things outside your body. It'll be interesting exercise. So I thought I'll give you a few examples to start with. The first example is age. So as human beings age from being a child, then adolescence, then middle age, then old age, um, we go through major changes. And when we look at our body through a dosha lens in a growing up phase, because nourishment is the biggest focus, the bones and the body structure and the brain and everything is nourishing properly, and nourishing is a function of kapha dosha. So you will be able to notice that children will be more prone to sort of mucousy allergy kind of issues, cough cold symptoms, and the skin will be more oilier than adults in later life. So there is a kapha tendency at that time, which helps with the process of nourishment. Then we all go into a pitta predominant phase where we are all trying to be focused, achieving things, setting up a career, setting up a lifestyle. All of that is that pitta goal oriented time of our life. And the third stage, as the age progress, we all will start to notice signs of dryness, signs of coldness, lowering of appetite, different symptoms related to vata, which is also a cause why age-related issues mostly create an imbalance or issues related to bones and joints or related to nervous system, all of which is concerned with movements, which is a function of vata. So we go from kapha to pitta to vata when we look at age using the dosha lens. If you look at the day and night cycle, doshas can be used in the day and night cycle also. So how the environment and the time of the day affects your body, you can easily understand when we look at the, say if we imagine a day starting at 6 a.m., sunrise at 6 a.m., and sunset at 6 p.m. for ease of explaining, uh, and divide each day and night into 3 different equal parts, say 6 to 10, 10 to 2, 2 to 6. And we will see that there is a specific nature at each of these dosha. There will be a dosha predominance of, initially there will be kapha in the first one third, then comes pitta, and then comes vata. So first one third of, say, let's take the day, will be more kapha predominant. So 6 a.m. till say 10, that's the time when the body will have more energy to do activities and things like that. If we accidentally overslept, or we habitually oversleep towards this kapha period of time, we will actually feel more tired rather than feeling well rested. It's ideal, that's why, to wake up just before sunset, if you can, which is considered to be the Brahma Muhurta, or ideal time to utilize that slightly higher Vata at that time. And then between 10 and 2 is the best time. Nowadays, a lot of us are doing intermittent fasting, or having our main meal at that time, which is highly beneficial because that's where the Pitta is highest, the sun is out in the daytime, and your appetite will be actually good, your digestion power will be actually good, and your absorption will be also similarly better. And towards the end of the day, it will be more vata. We feel tired, we feel sort of a little bit um, not so focused or able to concentrate on things, and it's sort of natural affinity will be to have a tea and to relax, rather than to do too many things. And this cycle again repeats. Again, sunset, 4 hours after sunset will be kapha predominant, so the best time to go to sleep. If you manage to get to bed before 10, your possibility of getting into that deeper sleep will be good. If you stay awake beyond 10 and enter into pitta phase, even though the sun is not out, your digestion power will start reactivating, and you will need to snack. You will feel like doing a fridge raid, and which is not a good habit. It will start happening every day at that time, if you get into that cycle. And towards vata time, your mind will actually feel active, and in fact, if you stay longer enough without sleeping, you will not feel that much tiredness with towards the early morning time. But then you will feel tired subsequently when the kapha time starts. So you can see that the rhythm of the day and night time has an impact, and it can be explained through this same dosha lens. Similarly, eating a meal will make us more kapha for a moment of time until the digestion is complete. Uh, some of you who has kapha issues might notice that having a heavy meal might affect the breathing, or might create more mucousy tendency and lethargy immediately after that. And then there's a pitta phase where the digestion happens, and towards the end is the vata stage where we feel light and easy and maybe ready for another meal. Gut microbiome, I just took it as it's a new example. It's because I actually sort of stumbled upon a study which sort of says that when all the gut bacteria from different people in different countries with different food habits were studied, they were interestingly uh, noticing that the group of bacteria in each of their gut biome showed very sort of similarities, irrespective of where they are from. And in the end, they in fact managed to do 3 different types, or 3 enterotypes. You can read it up online. It's very much in a primitive state that it's not applied in any way in my knowledge, but it does look similar to vata pitta kapha related changes in our gut, which will also impact what kind of environment is available for those bacteria, whether it is an acidic environment, say pitta, or whether it's a more mucousy environment, or kapha, or a less mucousy environment when there is vata. The kind of bacteria that can properly grow there will be also changing according to the environment that the gut provides it. So that also sort of um, can be viewed, if you want to, through the dosha lens. And now if we try and use this dosha lens to look at things outside, it's very interesting to see different food habits in different parts of the world. Like, for example, I am from south of India, where it's quite tropical, warm, and also quite humid. In a way, it's sort of a warmer version of UK. It's similarly sort of always raining and a bit cloudy. But anyway, one thing which I notice is a huge difference is that in Kerala we can't find cottage cheese or paneer, which is very commonly understood as a typical Indian dish to prepare. Cottage cheese is very commonly used in northern parts of India, but in South India, it's impossible to find. Nobody actually has it nowadays. It's available, but it's not part of a traditional cuisine, and that I find is because the nature of the place is quite kapha. It's waterlogged, humid, heavy, and if you have large quantities of milk products, that's going to increase that kapha tendency, will create more health issues related to, say, weight or respiratory conditions. And whereas northern parts of India is more drier and warmer, less kapha, more vata, it's suitable to have milk products and nourishing things like cottage cheese. And it's slightly less suitable for acidic ingredients like alcohol, or it's slightly less suitable to have lots of meat and red meat, which is sort of what the diet in northern parts of India naturally and traditionally used to reflect. And if you go up further north, like up to, say, the Himalayas, um, you would notice that, say, places near Ladakh, I don't know if you've heard, it's a plateau very near to Tibet, and it's very cold, very dry. The traditional drink that is served as soon as you go into any home will be a tea, which is a salty tea prepared with yak butter. Yak butter is actually taken out, and their favorite sort of food habits will be also high fat content. And nowadays we understand that it's because it is necessary to maintain body temperature and the high energy needed to survive in a cold place. But it's also interesting to look at that the cold dry nature is very vata provoking. It's not just calories that we need. If it was calories, they could have easily got on a diet which is very sugary. That should sort of help the calorie needs, and it's much easier to digest also compared to fat. But it's the nature itself is vata, quite dry and quite cold. So what you need is a warm drink which has an oily content in it, and that's what they are exactly doing, a dosha based diet there, without knowing that this is a vata remedy to have a sort of a tea which has fat in it. It's also, you can see examples like in colder countries, it's normal to have some form of alcohol with the meal, especially in colder, when exposed to cold weather. There could be all sort of example that you can look at if you observe the traditional kind of a diet that exists in different places. Climate wise also, you can notice that various changes in climate do make us, prompt us to do food differently. Like, for example, in UK, when the weather is quite warm, even if somebody is diagnosed as a bit of vata imbalance, if the situation permits, sometimes I do suggest that it's all right to have a salad in a hot, like a heat wave kind of a day, if you feel like having it, instead of having a cooked meal which will make you feel miserable on a hot day. And similarly in colder weather, like I remember having a small glass of mulled wine, spiced wine on a Christmas evening from our local church. And it's really interesting to see how fast it warmed up the body on that cold evening, which I would say is very climate-based dosha remedy, where a fermented drink with spices is quite suitable to reduce that cold kapha-like nature, to warm up the body and create that lightness for at least a moment. So there are examples, if you move this lens of dosha lens to yourself or to things around you, and you can actually define various things happening around you using this lens. And I want you to sort of do some simple exercises at home to observe each other and try to sort of understand why you are, say, craving for a particular taste or a craving for a particular activity. Uh, and you might actually see that dosha nature in all of these particular observations. So that's basically our first masterclass. I hope it was interesting and informative, and I also look forward to seeing you soon for our next one. Thank you. Namaste.